Once it stops spinning, we will go live. Oh, family, I'm having some internet challenges. I'm trying to go live. It is just spinning at the moment, but hopefully I will be popping live any moment soon. And yeah, Mr. Chongo, I was saying before you arrived backstage that if I drop out, once we're live, just continue going, okay? Hey, we are live. Greetings, family. Sister Shanice in the house. How are you all? As you can see, two of my guests are already with me, and Leader Bandaka is preparing backstage. Welcome to another Sister Shanice show. Just to warn you, family, I have been having internet challenges, so if I drop out, don't worry. My wonderful, fantastic, bombastic guests are going to keep the show on the road. So how are you, everybody in the audience? Welcome. Please let us know that you're here. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a rise up. Guests, and we have a full house tonight. So let me just welcome you. Let me just let you know that this is a show where we have our own conversations about what's happening. Okay, if you're not hearing me, Kwame Gonza, take it away.
I can hear you.
Okay, Mr. Chongo, you hear me okay? Leader Bandaka, you're looking at the screen a little puzzled. How are you, Leader? Oh, you're on mute. Unmute yourself. Let's hear the voice of Leader Bandaka. Just take yourself off mute, please, Leader. Okay, not to worry. Let me just remove you so you can sort yourself out backstage, and then we will be bringing you straight back on. Okay, so Sister Shanice here, coming to you live, coming to you direct. As you can see, this is a live show, and I am broadcasting from the Mama Land. So yeah, you got me at the controls through to, well, hopefully to about 10 o'clock tonight GMT time. And so, you know, we're going to be taking it away. Let me ask each of my guests to introduce themselves to you. Brother Kwame Gonza, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Sister Shanice. I bring to you greetings from West Africa, in Ghana, from the gateway to Africa. We just want to thank all the people who are watching us and who relentlessly have answered this call of our ancestors, the call of conscientizing ourselves and learning more about what they did and prepare ourselves for the task ahead that was left for us in order so that we can liberate our people, and so that we can do what Samia Nkrumah, Dr. Nkrumah's daughter, calls the unfinished business. The unfinished business. The unfinished business is the unification of the African continent and improving the lives of the African people all over the world. And I say African people with the mindfulness that he said that all people of African descent, whether they live in North America, South America, the Caribbean, or in any part of the world, are Africans and belong to the African nation. So when I say African people, that is what I mean. We have a task ahead, and it's good that we are constantly preparing ourselves, because we are not living in normal times. The times we are living in are very special times. Since 2020, there has been a new world order. Those who understand what is going on and have been reading on the geopolitics of the world understand that there is something going on in the world, and a lot of things are being changed here. New nations are rising, others are falling down. Economists have predicted these things, and they are constantly, emphasizing them if you check on YouTube. So we thank you, Sister Shanice, for giving us this platform to come and share these ideas and improve ourselves as we share among ourselves. At the same time, we bring out information that our people that have been subjected to social engineering and brainwashing for a very long time, that we can help to bring them to speed with the task ahead. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank my audience that is watching us, and our audience, and my colleagues, Brother Leader Mbandaka, who I always learn from. I learn a lot from him. Brother Chongo, Mr. Chongo, CH, my very good brother from from down south. So we have started identifying this continent as our nation. We don't want to emphasize so much the idea of colonial territories. So we identify that we come from this particular territory in the south, but not as a country, because our country is the nation Africa, and we need to be concerned about whatever's going on there. So once again, I would like to say thank you, everyone who is watching. We encourage you to share the show and keep your ears, alert, and learn a lot. When we have people like Leader Bandaka on the screen, you can be very sure that we are going to, learn a lot of things. These are men who, for a very long time, the Africa which we are fighting for is in their heart, and even some of them who have never even stepped on the continent. And like Kwame Nkrumah said, that I'm not an African because I was born in Africa, but because Africa was born in me. So Africa is a law to us, that it is written in our hearts, even though people have never stepped here and lived here. People like Rihanna, people like Nas, people like Damian Mali, people like Anthony Joshua. You will see them with tattoos of Africa in their bodies, because for us, Africa is a law and is written on our hearts. So no one can take it away from us. And this is what has kept us going and fighting and understanding that we are African, and no one can take away that. Somebody can take away the resources, but at a certain level, we will rescue them too, but they cannot take away our Africa from ours. So I want to thank you once again. Thank you so much, Sister Shani, and thank you so much for the audience.
We thank you too, Kwame Gonza. Yes, rising up the consciousness among us, each one teach one. And yes, we have a giant in the house, Leader Bandaka, but you young men are walking very closely behind in his shoes. And that's why I always love to put you on the same platform as this great leader, because I see, him instilling in you all, the wisdom that he's just always so willing to share, and that you all, so willingly absorb and also give so much as well from your own knowledge, your own experiences from living on the continent. Yes, we may not have been born on the continent, but Africa was born in us indeed. Let me introduce, first of all, Mr. Shongo, CH. Rise up, Mr. Shongo. Welcome.
Thank you so much, my sister, and thank you, Brother Kwame and Brother Mandaka. Such a pleasure to be here, and whenever I'm listening to great minds like that of Brother Kwame and my brother here, Brother Mandaka, if I pronounce your name correctly, is I see the future of the African continent, and this is all what we need as Africans, to engage and continue speaking to one another in terms of reminding ourselves about something that is after our lives as Africans. And when we are engaging each other in these conversations, this shows that the spirit of our forefathers is still with us, and still our leaders are succeeding now, because almost every African child today is realizing that we need to wake up and do something for our continent. And this cannot be, the time that we can wait to speak and engage into these conversations later, but the time is now for us to begin to awaken ourselves towards the emancipation of the African mind and the African economies, and also politically emancipate our land. And hence it's just a great honor to be amongst you great leaders this evening. I say thank you so much. Much appreciated.
So much as well, Mr. Chongo. Let me see if I can change the layout here. Okay. Alrighty. We have West Africa in the house. We have the southern region of Africa in the house. Okay. Welcome, leader.
Tendai Mwari.
We're not hearing
Tenda
you.
Mwari.
Can you hear me? Good, good. Just checking. Tendai Mwari.
Tenda Mwari.
Bringing greetings as always in the most precious, powerful, and bountiful name of our motherland, Al-Kebulan, Mama Africa, in the sacred spirits of our most gracious ancestors, and in a prayer for oneness, hope, and prosperity for all African people on the face of Mother Earth. Rumbidzo Kunamwari, Africa, to the God of Africa be the glory. It is a joy to be an African and a joy to be ministering to the most important people on the planet, the sons and daughters of Africa. We give thanks and praises, Sister Shanice, for your strength, for your vigor, for your determination, for your tenacity, and for the power of love that you have for African people and the will to see us free and self-determining once again. To my younger brother, Brother Kwame Gonza, it's great to see you again and to be on this show with you again. And to my other brother whose name I cannot see for some reason at present and whom I'm yet to meet. So it's an honor to meet you, my brother, and to know that you are a young blood among us who is working and fighting for the liberation of our people. And so let me just say very quickly, to seal my greeting this evening, a hearty Kwanzaa yenu iwe na heri. Kwanzaa yenu iwe na heri. Have a happy and fruitful Kwanzaa. We are indeed embarking on the season of Kwanzaa, which is a 7-day Pan-African holiday and festive celebration, which commences the 26th of December to the 1st of January. And there are 40 million or so people, African people around the world, who observe Kwanzaa every year. So I want to wake up the spirit of Kwanzaa in this program this evening, wishing everyone a happy and fruitful Kwanzaa. Tendai Mwari.
Tenda Mwari, welcome, welcome, Leader Bandaka. And we also want to rise up everybody in the house and wish you all a happy Kwanzaa as well. So we're just going to go over to our audience. Yeah, let us know where you're watching us from. Where are you in the world? Where are you viewing us from? So we want to rise up. We want to rise up. Happy Companion. Rise up, Happy Companion. He's got his own YouTube channel. Make sure you check him out, okay? We want to rise up the Jamaican Junker channel. Yes, Jamaican Junker channel. We've missed you for a couple of strolls. Great to know you're in the house. DJ, the Jamaican Junker said, Africans for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. Yes, the words of the late, great Marcus Messiah Garvey, I believe. And he also says, up ye mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. If everyone could put their phone on their device on mute, please. Natural Mystic saying greetings from the UKKK. All one love. Rise up, Natural Mystic. Rise up, Kimani as well, who's rising us up. Thank you so much. The Jamaican Junker said, Minolai call Ghana, man. mandated all of the entering, or all the people them entering the country to be jabbed. No, we like it. You don't know what one that's go on this so. But the people I'm sure are gonna be turning that over. So we rise up, everybody in the house watching from the Hawks. We welcome you, Montu. We welcome you. It says we are in a new cycle. The African continent long term is going to be fine. This cycle is going to be 2551. Long the West, long, and the West will continue to lose its power. Yes, indeed. We all saw the big U-turn they had to do, putting 11 African countries on their red list. They should have just called it their black list. Well, when Nigeria turned around and said, all right, we will put you on our black list, they were like, well, you know what? That variant isn't really spreading as bad as we thought it was. We're going to abandon, the idea of putting the African countries on their black list, right? You see, when you stand up to them, So we want to rise up. Tuka Pamoja, welcome. And someone has given us a $20 donation. We thank you so much for that. Epiphanic movement. Thank you. Much appreciated, love. Tukamoja is saying, from the dumb court, England. Time to succeed. We welcome you. JJ, welcome. Blue Zodiac, welcome. Jermaine, welcome. We rising you all up. Woodum to each and every one of the family. Okay, we're going to go straight into our conversation and our discussion this evening, because I know, we have
Brother Leader, do you want to jump in and do the presentation? Your microphone is muted. Brother Leader, the microphone is muted.
On the continent today, because of the bravery, because of our freedom.
I think she's having a little problem with the internet. Yes.
Okay, Tendai
Mwari, Brother Leader.
Right. I'm hoping now. Can you confirm for me, Brother Kwame, that you can see
the presentation? I think the host has to allow it. I think, but for now we can be saying a few things as she comes back.
Oh, okay.
Yes, she has to authorize it from her end as the host.
Okay, so
yes.
Should we proceed?
Yes, I think we should proceed as she said.
Okay, Tendai Mwari, can you?
Are you not seeing all?
Sister Shanice, Sister Shanice, you have to log off and come back.
I'm having internet difficulty.
Okay, Tendai Mwari, did you say go ahead, sis? You're kind of breaking up, so I think.
If you can, please do carry on. Leader Bandaka, please do carry on.
Right.
Yes, please do go ahead.
Can you see the image?
Yes, we can see the image.
Okay then. Right.
She removed it. She has removed it.
Okay, so you can't see it now.
No, we can't see it now.
Okay.
Okay, it's coming back. Yes, we can see it now.
Okay.
Whatever you can put that.
My apologies.
That's okay. Right. Tendai Mwari. The subject matter for this evening is, the topic for this evening is martyred prophets, martyred prophets celebrated puppets, the deadly politrix of Afrika. Martyred prophets celebrated puppets, the deadly politrix of Afrika. And we want to challenge ourselves this evening with a very serious question. First of all, I should say that what we aim to accomplish this evening is a critical historical analysis of the politics of Afrika, the politics of our motherland, where we have seen populist and progressive leaders, otherwise known as puppets, and leaders and governments that are assassinated and toppled and replaced with agents, otherwise known as puppets of European and American imperialism, otherwise known as neo-colonialism. And they are there to promote, preserve, and protect the interest of neocolonialism or Euro-American imperialism. That's what we want to expose this evening. And in that context, we want to challenge ourselves by asking the question, how long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? As a backdrop, beloved brothers and sisters, because context is extremely important in any political analysis. And I want to say, before I go any further, that this is a colossal topic. It's a massive topic, and we're not going to complete it this evening. So I want to suggest that we proceed as best we can. I do have a PowerPoint presentation, but I will not deliver it all in one. I will do it in bite-sized chunks and allow others to come in and make comments, and then I move to the next stage. So first and foremost, I'd like to, as I said, give the context, because context is extremely important in any political analysis. And in that vein, I want to highlight what we call white supremacy and the Hegelian dialectics. White supremacy and the Hegelian dialectics. Now, I want to start by raising up the name and the spirit of two great African thinkers, Baba Neely Fuller and the late Mama Frances Quest Welsing. Mama Frances Quest Welsing popularized this saying, which originated with Baba Neely Fuller. If you don't understand white supremacy, what it is and how it affects you, then everything else that you think you understand will only confuse you. Frances Quest Welsing goes on to say, the only form of functional racism that exists among the people of the known universe is white supremacy. White supremacy, she says, operates in all areas of people activity: economics, education. Economic.
Let me interrupt you. Small. That slide, we are not seeing it. We would like to see it if you go to the next slide.
Okay.
With Nelly Fuller and.
What are you seeing at the moment?
We are just seeing the first page, which is the martyred prophets and celebrated puppets. Okay. Yeah. So if you press next, I think it will go to the next.
I did.
Okay.
See, I'm seeing something else now. I'm seeing the second slide now.
Yes, that's excellent. That's excellent.
What, you can see it now, yes?
Yes. Yes. Now we can see it.
Oh, okay. So, to continue, Mama Marimba Annie says white supremacy operates in all areas of people activity: economics, education, and entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Every area of people activity is penetrated and saturated with the vicious, evil philosophy and ideology of white supremacy. Now, I know that there are others who have a different view on whether we should use this term, white supremacy, in the way we use it or not. I will bring me back to that later on, and I will qualify the use of the term. Tendai Mwari. The Hegelian dialectics, it is a government covert method of mass psychosocial control, which they use, where they create a problem. And I think it's important to understand this as part of the context, because to understand the state of African politrix presently on the continent, we need to understand the Hegelian dialectics and how it applies in politics, where governments, in order to covertly control masses of people psychosocially, have the tendency to create problems in order to induce crisis and fear and panic in people, so that people cry out to the government for help, so that the government comes with a program of solution. We see that unfolding now with the big C globally. So remember the three P's: problem, panic, program of solution. Create the problem, the crisis, induce panic, the people cry out to for help in fear, and the government comes with a program of solution. And sorry, I don't have the Hegelian dialectic slide up for us at the moment. I also, brothers and sisters, want to remind us of the one fundamental rule of global geopolitics, which is whoever controls Africa rules the world. Whoever controls Africa rules the world. If we do not understand this fundamental rule of global geopolitics, we will never understand the politrix of the African continent. We will never, ever understand it. Now, let me share with you also, brothers and sisters, that it's in this context that Baba, the great warrior scholar, Baba John Henry Clarke, says, no other people have had to suffer what we have had to suffer as African people, mainly because we have always had and still have something the world wants, can't do without, and don't want to pay for. So we ask the question, what is it that we Africans, what is it that Africa and we Africans have that the world wants, can't do without, and don't want to pay for? Well, first and foremost, be it known that Africa is the birthplace of humanity and the cradle of civilization. That the first people in creation are the ebony-hued sun-kissed sons and daughters of Africa. It is important that we understand, beloved brothers and sisters, that Africa is the richest continent on the face of the earth, with its 13 million square miles, which constitutes over 60% of the world's most arable land. We are almost 20% of the global population, and we have the youngest population around the world. We are the youngest continent around the world. And that is largely because of the history of invasion and conquest that we have been through, but we'll come back to that. Africa has 90% of the world's platinum, 90% of the world's cobalt, 50% of the world's supply of gold, 66%, 2/3 of the world's manganese, 35% of the world's uranium, 75% of the world's coltan, 50% of the world's diamond. We have an endless supply of rubber, of wood. We have in abundance solar and access to solar energy, hydro energy, wind energy in abundance across the African continent. And in context with hydro energy, we have the longest river in the world, 4,160 miles long is the Nile River. That is the envy of the world. And bear in mind, in that context, beloved brothers and sisters, that Africa, with its 13 million square miles capacity, can house the United States of America, China, India, the European Union. All the countries of the European Union can also fit in on the African continent. Japan. I have just mentioned the 5 richest entities in the world today, and all of them can fit on the African continent. The populations of China, of India, 1.2, 1.5 billion, 1.2 billion respectively. The population of the United States of America, which is some 330 million. The population of Japan, which I believe is 125 million or so. All can fit on the continent of Africa. There you have about nearly 400 billion people who can fit on the African continent, and we still have plenty of wiggle room. That is the powerhouse that Africa represents in the world today. And yes, as I said before, we have an abundance of the world's most coveted natural resources. That is what the world wants, can't do without, and don't want to pay for. That is why there was a scramble for Africa in the 1800s, culminating in the Berlin Conference, 1884-85. So let me move on, beloved brothers and sisters, very quickly. We need to understand, again, in terms of context, the Ma'afa, 500 years of the colossal destruction of Africa and African humanity by Europe and America, Euro-America, as we say. In other words, global white supremacy. And these are the 6 stages. 1, invasion. 2, conquest. 3, slavery. 4, colonialism. 5, neocolonialism. And 6, globalization. Let me move quickly on, brothers and sisters. I'm going to pause in a moment to bring in my beloved brothers. In the context of the Ma'afa, we need to visit the works of the great warrior scholar, Baba Walter Rodney, and his illuminating book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, where he tells us on a whole the process by which, and this is especially to disabuse us of the notion that slavery was the result of Africans selling Africans. He tells us on a whole the process by which captives were obtained on African soil was not trade at all. It was through warfare, trickery, banditry, and kidnapping. When one tries to measure the effects of European slave trading on the African continent, it is very essential to realize that one is measuring the effect of social violence rather than trade in any normal sense of the word. Then he goes on to tell us that no one has been able to come up with a figure representing the total losses of the African continent sustained through extraction of so-called slave labor. Over the many centuries, however, on every other continent from the 15th century onwards, the population showed constant and sometimes spectacular natural increase, while it is striking that the same does not apply to Africa. And he goes on to demonstrate to us that the African population has in effect declined, whilst other populations have risen between 1650 and 1900. Such was the onslaught on African humanity throughout the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, that it is estimated that the population of Africa in 1900 was over 300 million less than it otherwise should have been. Tendai Mwari. Sorry, brothers and sisters. Getting back on track. And yes, we talked about the scramble for Africa, the Berlin Conference, 1884, 85, the invasion, occupation, colonization, and annexation of African territory by European powers during the period of neo-imperialism, 1881 to 1914. Beloved brothers and sisters, Africa is still suffering. Africa is still suffering from that assault on its people and its land. Until to this day, it still continues. Tendai Mwari. And look at this, brothers and sisters. In 1900, in context with the scramble for Africa, Britain purchased Nigeria from the Royal Niger Company, now Unilever, for $865, that should be $865,000, which would be equivalent, pounds, which would be equivalent to over 112 million pounds in today's currency. Think about that, brothers and sisters, that there was a deal between a multinational corporation. They've been plaguing us for some time now, brothers and sisters. These godforsaken multinational corporations. They sold, so they presumed to own Nigeria until they sold it to Britain in 1900 for the equivalent of over 100 million pounds, beloved brothers and sisters. Tendai Mwari. Let me pause there for a moment, beloved brothers and sisters. I just want to offer that as the backdrop for our subject this evening. Martyred prophets, celebrated puppets, the politrix of Africa. We're unraveling the politics of Africa this evening. And I've just opened up with a backdrop. And I want to invite my beloved brothers, maybe Brother Kwame, if you could come in at this point. Brother Kwame.
Thank you so much, Brother Leader Mbandaka. Thank you.
If we come in at this point, we do a round, and then I'm happy to continue. That's okay. Sister Shanice, yes. I can see you. Are you with us, Ken?
Sister Shanice, your microphone.
Thank you so much. Leader Bandaka, that was an absolutely fantastic opening. I'm hearing you all well, but I recognize that I am dropping in and out. But please do carry on.
And click it again if I want it back.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Sister Shanice.
I'll put it down here somewhere.
Very
So I go there to get it back.
So yes, over to Brother Kwame Gonza.
Thank you so much, Sister Shanice and Brother Leader Mbandaka, for setting the pace for us on this,
Thank you.
This important topic,
Yes,
which is
Kwame.
yes, I can hear you, Sister Shanice.
We'll go on to Mr. Chonga, CH, and then we'll go back.
Oh, thank you, Sister Shanice.
Just carry on.
The pace has been set by Leader Mbandaka. I would like to attack the topic today from a different angle. The topic today is clearly stated that martyred prophets and celebrated puppets, as Brother Leaders already articulated the predicament of our continent and the challenges that it has been going through for the last 500 to 600 years. This informs us how we should prepare ourselves, how we should educate ourselves in understanding what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah called the mechanism of neocolonialism. Because this is a person who saw in the early 1940s, the early part of the 1940s, after the World War II, that neocolonialism was changing tactics, and he said that in order to halt foreign interference in the affairs of developing countries, it is necessary to study and to understand, expose, and actively combat neocolonialism in whatever guise it may appear. For the methods of neocolonialism and neocolonialists are subtle and varied. They operate not only in the economic field, but also in the political, religious, ideological, and cultural spheres. And for a very long time, neocolonialism has been consolidating itself on the African continent during a period which I saw to call the period of 1966, which followed the overthrow of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah as the biggest fighter to it. When they overthrew him in 1966 March, and then we saw that because he was the one who was fighting so hard for the continent, when he was eliminated, immediately evil plans were rolled out on the African continent. I'm talking about things like the structural adjustments on the African continent, which impoverished a lot of African people. They hoodwinked us that the state cannot hold, cannot do business. So private people should take over the resources of our continent and our countries. There was a deliberate attempt to destroy all our industries, and which actually succeeded to a certain level of destruction. When you look at the African continent in the 70s, we had gained up to 60%, 5 to 6% of the world industrialization during that drive after the independence, because there was a lot of nationalistic leaders on the continent. who fought and struggled to see that Africa also can industrialize and at a rapid rate. When you look at Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's speech in 1963 in Addis Ababa, which was a very, very urgent speech during the formation of the Organization of African Unity, which is now the AU, an organization which was a compromise. So we see that neocolonialism has been succeeding at removing the most aggressive leaders who push for African, agenda, and leaving those we see, or it sees that they are harmless, and then propping up and putting them on a pedestal as some sort of heroes which we should worship. But fortunately, our ancestors are on our side, and it is not hard to examine the works and the contribution of each of them who have been demonized. People like Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and Dr. Martin Luther King, after a certain level, when he realized that things are not going as he expected, and he was aggressively pushing for the liberation of our people in the United States before he was murdered, because he had realized certain things, people like Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba. So these are the people in which our guidance should lie. Our guidance should not lie in neo-colonial policies, whether it is structural adjustments, whether it is World Bank policies, SDGs, what they call MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, SDGs, all these tools that have been used to impoverish our people. It encumbers upon us as African people to understand who is really for us, so that we can celebrate our prophets in the right way. But not only to stop there in celebrating them and identifying the puppets that are being propped up so that we can worship them, or some of them who are double-tongued. On one side, they speak about Pan-Africanism, and on the other side, they are in the pockets of imperialism and neocolonialism, borrowing a lot of money, impoverishing our people, collapsing, individual, collapsing African people institutions like banks. Like when we go around the continent, we see that the financial institution all over the continent has been taken over by European banks, but they are blaming China. When you go to the construction industry, also it has been taken over, the production of cement. When you go to the manufacturing, it has been taken over, Indians all over the continent. So it is important for us to understand who is really for us. And it is not hard that we should understand this. The literature has been already left there. We don't need to invent anything new. People like Walter, our ancestor Walter Rodney, he has written in his book, like Brother Leader Mbandaka said, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. He articulated not only the problem, but he also articulated how we should attack this problem. And he said that Africa must, completely disconnect itself from Europe. It has, in order for it to charter a way, its own way, it has to disconnect itself from Europe, because the relationship with Europe for a very long time has been a parasitic relationship. They have made themselves parasites who are there just to destabilize the continent, who are there to suck blood out of the lives of Africans, and at the same time say they should not come here, they are immigrants. But when they are coming here, they call themselves investors. So we have seen this all over the Sahel, whereby France has been exploiting for a very long time, and there is chaos and people are tired of it. We see in Mali, we see in Niger, we see in countries like Senegal, people have been demonstrating and destroying French businesses which are there, because people have realized that these are the people who have been destroying us and killing us, and France has been killing people, all over this continent. So when they have exploited the Sahel and West Africa for a very long time, now we see that they are pivoting towards the so-called former, English colonies, the former colonies of England. we see that France is last year, this year in September, it called the French Africa Summit, in which it invited the youth of Africa to try to hoodwink them, because it is trying to re-strategize. That meeting followed also a meeting which the French Chamber of Commerce organized to bring Ghana, to bring South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya in its orbit, whereby it is trying to shift from places where it has overexploited and there is no businesses, so that it can take over the side where the Britain, the former colonies of Britain, and I've spoken about South Africa. If you check out that on the internet, you can see it. I've spoken about South Africa, Kenya, Ghana, and Nigeria. So you can see that there is a pivot there. But what must we do? We should understand that the people who represent these ideas and are fearful to talk about our ancestors that articulated the solutions that we are supposed to be implementing, and they ignore them. These are the fruits from which we should be able to identify them and not celebrate it, celebrate them or prematurely celebrate them. Like how we see a certain leader came and he was speaking, on a high mountain as if he's a Pan-Africanist. But when you go, a certain leader in West Africa, when you go and examine his actions and what he has done, blocking off the country and saying that everyone must be, vaccinated, before all Africans, all people should be vaccinated at the airport by force, which is a violation of people's rights. You cannot vaccinate people. So we see this kind of attitude, that these are people that to some extent we have prematurely celebrated, but the guidance is there. I'm very optimistic as a youth that if we follow in the shoes of our real ancestors, people like Honorable Marcus Garvey, who say that as long as people hold on to the idea of nationhood, we as Africans should not lose that idea. And the culmination of all struggle of the African people all around the world should be the unification of the African continent and building ourselves a stable nation. So we see that the guidance is already there. A lot of literature has been written. Amos Wilson, Francis Wesling, all this is to prepare us as a people, as young people, so that we can take on the fight from there with the understanding that they have contributed, they have done their best. We must fight like we are going to win this struggle, because that is what we are supposed to do as a people. So whenever we are presented with the opportunity to use technology like this, I was speaking to Sister Shanice the other day, and I told her that there has been a mass opening up, sort of like democratization of technology and information. So there's no reason for us to be, not to know what is going on in the world. There's no reason. The news is on every day. You can filter out and understand when you read what our ancestors left behind. You can read and look at the events today and understand what we are supposed to do. It is very clear. It is very clear that imperialism is on the decline. It is very evident. It is being spoken about. It is in a steep decline. It is in a big trouble. You can see the yellow jackets in France. So at the same time, when France was having yellow jackets, people demonstrating on the streets because of income inequality, at the same time, it is the same time that France was pivoting in Africa, because they are struggling to hang on, even though people have shown that they are tired of them. So this is where we must also pick momentum and hold on to the ideology of our forefathers of nationhood, of consolidating our forces that are diversified all over the continent and the diaspora, and bringing them together so that we can make a final push. As Marcus Garvey, Honorable, said, that we must strike continuously a blow, because our liberation is not going to come on the table. We have to struggle for it. We have to push harder. And the literature is there. Nkrumah said you should struggle for political liberation. The development, the economic development and social development of Africa is going to come through the political, union, the political aspect of Africa. So we have to understand that we have to build our nation. We have to build ourselves a nation by all means. So all options should be on the table. We should understand that our generation has that task. They did their task. And some of them, they didn't know that they would finish the work. By they started the work. Tusalovacha started the work. These are people who didn't have anything, no weapons, nothing, but they had the courage. And Kwame Nkrumah, they had very little resources, no communication. So we really don't have an excuse of not knowing what to do. Tusalovacha, the history is there. Kwame Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey, these are contributions. So there is no reason to despair. Julius Nyerere said that the biggest sin which we can do is to despair. We cannot despair because the work has already been done for us. And when we understand, like I said, geopolitics and what is going on, the nations have risen, nations have come up and they have challenged. We have challenged when neocolonialism started weakening, when we challenged it and they abolished slavery. That is the culmination. That was the start of the decline of neocolonialism. And it has been multiplied over a long time. When we defeated it during colonialism and the civil rights movement, it continued to try to buy up a few people among us and make them groups that we can put on the pedestal and praise and say, these are the leaders. But all these were signs. These are signs of a decline. And it has continued. The process has continued up to this day. You can see the chaos that is going on, in the capitals, in Washington, the defeat in Afghanistan, and all these, the demonstrations, Brexit, all these are signs that there is something going on. The world is changing, and these people are trying to hang on. So it is upon us to use these tools and make the right analysis using the literature which has already been given us. And Kwame Nkrumah has done a lot of work on this. Neo-colonialism, the last stage of imperialism, class struggle in Africa. These are materials which are wonderful materials for us to capitalize on. How Europe developed, underdeveloped Africa, the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey, which Dr. Kwame Nkrumah said, there's no book which did so much, to inspire him, to fire him up. So these are the ideas that we are supposed to implement, in building a new Africa, in building, reconstructing Africa rapidly in relation with what is going on in the world today, in geopolitics, technology, industrialization. We cannot wait for foreigners to come and reconstruct Africa for us, but we have to continuously, consistently push ourselves and base our understanding and our actions on the ideology of our forefathers, not Obama, not IMF, not Europeans, not Chinese, but the ideology of our forefathers that has already been laid out. And we don't need to, to craft new, things. Thank you very much, our dear people who are watching.
Tendai Mwari, brother Chongo, have I pronounced his name correctly?
Yes.
Tendai Mwari. Please, my brother, let's hear your golden African voice and what you have to share with the African world this evening. Tendai Mwari.
Thank you so much, great leaders. Actually, as I was listening to all your speeches, your presentations, this reminds me of something that, I heard some time back, that the problem of the African continent is that we have respected other races so much that we have even forgotten how to protect what belongs to us. When you look at what makes states to interact, it's trade. Most of all these things that we talk about, they all point to trade. And we have issues of national interest. When a nation wants something, it will first go through all these systems which are put to allow it to access something that can benefit its people. And I think this is where we have been lacking as the African continent, because it's like we have taken a long time to understand exactly what works for us in the world. Because we have states which puts their interest first, but as the continent, we have failed to put our interest first. When we engage into negotiations with other states, what do we bring on the table? What do we demand when we are involved in negotiations of trade, in negotiations of how other states should come and do business in our land? What do we put on the table? Do we put the interests of the people of the African continent when we are involved in negotiations, in bilateral talks, and in other spaces where we are allowed to interact with the world and begin to build our economies? What do we put on the table? I think these are the pertinent questions which we need to be asking ourselves. What is it that which we want as the continent? And I'll say it here that just like any other continent, any other country, or any other leader of any state would go for something that can work for their people, I think that is exactly what we need to look at. If I saw an opportunity in China to do business, and after doing that business, it will enrich my continent, I will definitely go for that, because that opportunity has been put and displayed. And what I've seen in the world is that you need to display your abilities and how firm you are to protect the interest of your people. And this is something that is lacking in the African continent. It's like we are not firm on that which works for us. When you want to engage with America, America will say America first. If something does not benefit the Americans, America will not enter that deal. When you are engaging with China, China will say the Chinese first. If what you are bringing on the table does not benefit the Chinese, China will not take part in that deal. If you want to do business with Europe, Europe will say European first. If what you are dealing with, if what you are negotiating does not benefit a European, Europe will not engage into that business. And to Africans, we accept everything. It's like our interest comes second. And this is where we need to begin to reform in the African continent. But you know, all these systems we use to approach things that, you know, which are meant to benefit us are the systems which were left by the colonized. I will tell you that our current leaders or our forefathers who won the fake independence which we got in the continent inherited the colonial system, and the whole formation of the governance machinery was formed to centralize the powers of government, not to decentralize, not to give powers to the indigenous Africans. The powers were given to the elite who were educated to be agents of the imperial system. And this is where the entire problem and challenge of the African child comes in, because we are not given a space to put ideas or to contribute with the African consciousness, so that even when we begin to engage in talks of trade with other states, we do not have the consciousness of an African. We do not have the challenges of the African on the table. And I have this whole ideology and approach to the African problems. Africa needs a realist approach to the challenges which we have. Let our ideology be African first. If whatever we are involved in does not address the problem of an indigenous villager in Namibia, if what we are putting on the table does not address the challenge of a villager in South Sudan, then this deal is not mine. What we need now is to put everything that works for the African on the table and say, if I must starve to death by protecting the interest of an African, then let me die a honorable death of protecting that which works for the African child. Because after all, when we have the challenges, when we are starved almost to death, it is when we realize that the solutions to our problems are not anywhere outside this continent, but the solutions to the problems which we have in the African continent are within this continent. And it is after we face all the challenges and the starvations through the sanctions which can be put by these believed to be the superpowers. When we have these challenges, that's when we realize that we are now supposed to begin to produce that which Africa will consume. If we are able to produce something that can address the challenges in terms of health systems, let our products work for the African, and let us begin to improve in our own space and begin to do that which will be something which Africa will take pride in, and Africa will be proud to use it without looking anywhere outside this continent. This is where the entire solutions to the African problems lies. And I heard, talks about, Africa, because everything, it's more like we have put everything on the table and make other civilizations, other states define our problems and suggest solutions to our problems. And we are saying that we are no longer, subscribing to that. Because here, when we are discussing and debating on this panel, there are youthful minds which are debating this. This is a litmus test that out there, youths are beginning to realize that a lot of things, a lot of methods which have been used to our problems have not worked. And we are saying we want to own our destiny. We are saying we want to redefine our problems and rewrite the scripts to our problems and begin to solve the problems in our own way, in our own intelligence, in our own approach. And this is what we are saying, that as young people, we are realizing that the method which have been used by the puppet leadership, because we are saying we have celebrated these puppet leaders, and these puppet leaders have not served our interest. So celebrated puppet leaders, we are saying that we are no longer subscribing to this. We want to own our destiny. We want to own our future and design what our continent will look like. This is the future generation we are trying to build right now. And when we bring ideas on the table, we have everything that we want, and we have laid it on the table. And we are saying, let us identify solutions and approach to our problems, and we are going to do it, and to do it in our own way. This is the only way which we are going to use as Africans, young and leaders of youthful leadership, which we are going to say we need to put everything that we are able to do and all what we have identified that this can work for us, so that in our approach, we'll have the African consciousness as we approach and as we try to solve the problems which the African continent has. I think let me end for now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chongo. I don't know if I'm coming through loud and clear, so let me just jump straight over to Leader Bandaka. If you want to put your presentation up again, please do. Mr. Chongo, some powerful points there. So, you know, this is what I want to hear as well, what the young people on the continent are saying. Oh, wow, what a future we've got. Okay, I can see your presentation. Let's continue. We seem to have lost Brother Kwame. Hopefully he'll be back with us soon. Family, next time we go around, please do pull out some of the questions in the chat and address some of them after Leader Bandaka once we go around again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Tendai Mwari, good to have you back, Sister Shanice.
Good to
and
be blessed.
give thanks for the word sounds of knowledge and inspiration that we have just received from both Brother Kwame and Brother Chongo. Where I left off was where Nigeria had been purchased by Britain from the Royal Niger Company. And I just want brothers and sisters to just reflect on that for a moment. Britain presumed the right, well, even before that, this Royal Niger Company has presumed the right to own Nigeria. Now think of that for a moment, brothers and sisters. A multinational company owning a chunk of our African continent and then selling it to Britain. So right there, we have been reduced to objects and commodities to be bought and sold by presuming to sell the land where people live. You objectify the people, you reduce the people to objects. And I want us to understand that mentality and the mentality that these Europeans have towards African people. And I'm challenging us today to understand that that mentality has never, and I don't believe will ever change unless and until we change our relationship to and with these people. Tendai Moari. And so I want to bring into the frame the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who rose up in the African world and founded the UNIA, the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League of the World in 1914, so-called. And you know, the foremost scholar on the life and legacy of Papa Garvey, the late Baba Tony Martin, told us that when Papa Garvey rose up, we were, as a people, on the verge of going back into slavery or becoming extinct. And he said the work of Papa Garvey turned us around and put us back on a path of ascendancy. We need to think about that for a moment, because in what Papa Garvey gave us was the black print for our liberation through his program of mass global mobilization and organization of 11 to 13 million African people through the UNIACL and under the banner of the red, black, and green. And it was based on these pillars. The philosophy of Marcus Mosiah Garvey were based on these 4 pillars. Race first. Papa Garvey said, put your race first, like all other races do. Self-determination. Economic self-determination. Self-reliance. In other words, economic self-sufficiency. Economic self-determination. Nationhood. The need for us to organize ourselves at all times as a nation of people with according to our own system of government and our own order of society, as Papa Garvey puts it. And then African spiritual orthodoxy. This is and has been the most powerful liberation movement that the African world has ever seen, and therefore still stands as the black print for our liberation. And as I move on, brothers and sisters, we'll understand why it's necessary to raise that up within this context. I just want to remind us that the UNIACL had a program, a Liberian project, where it aimed to raise $2 million in the 1920s for a modernization program in Liberia. Liberia was going to be the new headquarters of the UNIACL, and from Liberia, we were going to shed the light and generate the power for liberation. So it had a £2 million African Redemption Fund. Part of that program was the UNIACL in the 1950s sending a cargo of $50,000 worth of industrial and agricultural equipment, for the industrialization and the modernization of Liberia in the 1920s. And it had a powerful global propaganda machine in the Negro world that went right around the world during that time, beloved brothers and sisters. Let me move on very quickly. We know that in 1945, there was the 5th Pan-African Congress. This is now, brothers and sisters, the attempts that we made in the early 90s to turn things around. We had the scramble for Africa, where African humanity was so emaciated. African humanity was so destroyed. African humanity was so abused. And now Africans were coming up with ideas to turn this around. And we have the legacy of Papa Garvey. And the legacy of Papa Garvey inspired in 1945 the 5th Pan-African Congress, led by the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah and George Padmore of Trinidad. And there were others present like Nnamdi Azikiwe, Jomo Kenyatta, Mama Amy Ashwood Garvey, W.E.B. Du Bois, and others, some of who went on to play key roles in the independence or the attempt to liberate African nations. The Congress had its 2 main objectives: to liberate the whole continent of Africa from colonial rule, to unite all people of African descent living in the diaspora and on the continent of Africa. So be it known that in 1945, this important pivotal conference, this pivotal conference of 1945 that impacted the African continent subsequently and kickstarted the revolutionary stroke anti-colonial movements of the 50s and 70s, had as its objective the liberation of the entire continent of Africa and the unity of all African people, including those on the African continent and those in the African diaspora. We know that in 1935, we saw the League of Nations declare itself neutral between the Italians, the vicious Italians who invaded Ethiopia and unleashed mustard gas on the civilian population of Ethiopia. Mustard gas that was supplied by the British, beloved brothers and sisters. Yes? Now we move to the revolutionary 60s. The revolutionary 60s, where Africa was on the rise. Africa was really on the rise in the revolutionary 60s, brothers and sisters, throwing off the yoke of colonialism. The anti-colonial movement, which led the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah in conjunction with His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I, and some great leadership prospects, all of whom were either assassinated, imprisoned, exiled, isolated, or otherwise neutralized, thus averting the process of the continent's unity, self-reliance, and self-determination. The African continent is still suffering from that legacy today, beloved brothers and sisters. Be it known that a brave and determined effort was made in the 1960s, the revolutionary 1960s. The Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, brothers and sisters, led the first nation from the sub-Sahara region of the African continent, the first independent African nation in sub-Sahara Africa on the 6th of March, 1957. And brothers and sisters, note his utterance. As part of his inaugural speech, he said, these words he wrote in his autobiography, so that we're clear about what inspired him the most. He said, I read Marx, Engels, Lenin, Hegel, Mazzini, but of all the books I read, nothing has fired my enthusiasm more than philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey. He realized that Marcus Garvey gave us the black print for our liberation. If Africa and Africans are ever going to be liberated again, we must return to the black print of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey, as the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah attempted to do. Here on the inauguration, in his inauguration speech, on the 6th of March, 1957, he said, our independence, the independence of Ghana, is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the entire African continent. Moving swiftly on, beloved brothers and sisters, the Osagyefo had widespread, and then he went ahead now to demonstrate what a free African nation looked like. He went ahead now, brothers and sisters, and he transformed the educational system. He brought in free education from primary right through to tertiary, including textbooks and compulsory secondary education, brothers and sisters. Hundreds of new schools were built. Over 1 million new school places were established under the Osagyefo. 11 technical colleges were built, 47 teacher training colleges, 3 new universities, mass adult literacy program, campaign for free scholarships granted to study abroad. So where the universities and colleges of Ghana did not have the capacity to provide for certain students, the government would pay for those students to go abroad and study science and technology and medicine and law and engineering. But they had to come back to Ghana and own their skills in Ghana and give back to the nation. That was the proviso of the free or the bursary that they were given to go and study abroad. Wages for teachers and university lecturers raised between 50 and 100%. Investment in intellectual and skills capacity for future self-reliance. He was you know what I mean, to understand this concept of intellectual and skills capacity. What the Osagyefo, who was a brilliant political scientist, what he was doing is generating Ghana's and Africa's own skills and intellectual capital. And he was also doing so for the rest of the African continent, because he would take in students from other parts of the African continent and give them free education in Ghana. Or he would pay for people from other nations on the African continent to go abroad and study. He was investing, he was generating intellectual and skills capital for the African continent. Sorry, beloved. Healthcare, free healthcare, new hospitals, health clinics built. In 1 decade, he tripled the number of new hospital beds, built 30 new clinics, quadrupled the number of doctors and dentists, increased the number of nurses. Life expectancy as a result increased markedly. One of the things that the Osagyefo always did was he had his finger on the pulse as far as healthcare was concerned. And you saw systemically the health and life expectancy of the people increasing significantly during his presidency. Economically, he had a balance between agricultural and industrial development. Agriculture was modernized and diversified rather than focusing purely on cash crops, cocoa. He diversified the agricultural industry with emphasis on subsidized subsistence farming. The leading countries in the European world subsidized, in fact, not only in the European world, in China, Chinese farmers are subsidized. In America, American farmers are heavily subsidized. In Europe, all over Europe, European farmers are heavily subsidized. The Osagyefo understood the importance of this, and he invested heavily in local farmers. Industrialization, over 1,100 new industries he built. Think about that for a moment, brothers and sisters. Numerous factories built, making glass and sugar refinery, textile printing plant, a printing plant, chocolate making factory, meat producing, radio assembly, printing plants, matches. They were making matches and shoes and nails and sweets and soft drinks and alcohol and cigarette. Well, we don't want too much of that, but they was doing it. They was making it. Rather than importing it, they were making it, brothers and sisters. Yeah? Biscuits, paints, canned fruits, insecticides, chemicals, huge investment in public and the corporate sector, right? The cooperative sector. So groups of locals were encouraged to set up cooperatives, and the government would invest, would give them a helping hand. A significant percentage of foreign investment in the private sector was to be allocated to the welfare of the Ghanaian people. So the private sector couldn't just come and make money. You know, they had to give back to the nation, give back to the people of Ghana. Electricity and water supply, brothers and sisters. A giant dam was built, the Akosombo Dam, brothers and sisters, in the Volta region, known as the Volta Dam. The power energy supply was for domestic use as well as industrial development. So because in line with the plan to industrialize Ghana, and the Osagyefo had a vision. He had a vision of economically outstripping Britain within a decade or so. He was going to outstrip, Ghana was going to outstrip Britain, because if you know anything about Ghana and its size in area and that of the United Kingdom, Ghana is 92,000 square miles, Britain is 94,000 square miles, and so it's very similar in size. And so the Osagyefo set his sights on overhauling Britain in terms of its economic advancement. In fact, I should add to that, that the aim and the vision, the broader vision of the Osagyefo was that Africa should become a superpower within a generation. He believed it could happen. And he was driving the nation and the continent and the African world towards accomplishing that vision. Now, remember what I said earlier on in terms of context, beloved brothers and sisters. I highlighted the richest countries in the world and demonstrated that all of them can fit on the African continent with all its population, and we would still have plenty of wiggle room. 4 billion people. The estimated population of Africa today is 1.2 billion, and yet they tell us that Africa is overpopulated, when in fact Africa is grossly, as Walter Rodney demonstrated to us, Africa is grossly underpopulated because of the wanton destruction of African humanity that has occurred over the last 4 to 5 centuries. I'm almost pausing in a few moments, beloved brothers and sisters. Housing, widespread housing projects. You go to Ghana, you can still see the housing schemes that the Osagyefo built, and some of them that still remain incomplete today. Transport, built hundreds of miles of new roads, railways, miles and miles of railways. That's the work that was going on in Ghana. Yes. He built the, let me move on. Town development, he built a whole town, new state-of-the-art town that he built. Tema, you go to Tema today, Tema is still impressive. Employment. Now, you think about all of the work that the Osagyefo was doing to transform Ghana, and all of it, the nation-building work was creating jobs for the people of Ghana. Moving swiftly on, the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah reached out to the African continent, to all the leaders of the African continent, beloved brothers and sisters. At the inaugural meeting of the Organization of African Unity, and the Osagyefo called for a commission to frame a constitution for the union government of African states, because he was clear that the configuration of the African continent was not sustainable. He was clear that the geographical configuration of the African continent was so done and so stratified in order to suit European interests and not African interests. So he called for a union government. He called for a commission to work out the continent-wide plan for the united and common economic plan, for the common economic and industrial program for Africa. He called for a common market for Africa, a single African currency, an African monetary zone, an African central bank owned by Africans, capitalized by Africans, a continental communication system. He called for all these things. He called for a commission to draw up details for a common foreign policy, a commission to produce plans for a common system of defense He wanted an African Union army that serves the African continent, not trained by alien forces in their interests, but trained to serve African interests. A commission to make proposals for a common African citizenship, one passport, one African-wide passport. This is what he called for. On the 24th, bear with me for a couple more minutes, if you would, beloved brothers and sisters. I know the other brothers need to come in. But let me just flesh out this part of the reasoning, and then I will give way. The 26th of February, 1964, the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah wrote to the U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson, protesting CIA covert operations in Ghana. In the letter, he said, brothers and sisters, there appears to be two conflicting establishments representing the United States in our part of the world. There is a United States Embassy as a diplomatic institution doing formal diplomatic business with us. There is also the CIA, an organization which functions presumably within or outside the recognized body. This latter organization, that is the CIA, seems to devote all its attention to fermenting ill will, misunderstanding, and even engaging in clandestine and subversive activities among our people. We of the independent African states wish to be left alone to pursue policies and courses which we know to be best in the interest of our people. So there we can see clearly the Osagyefo being concerned that the CIA was engaged in nefarious activities, hiding behind the walls of the U.S. Embassy in Ghana, but creating unrest and disturbances, sabotaging the progress that was being made in Ghana, and calling for the president to put a stop to it. Of course, he denied that such an operation was existing. And then we saw the fateful day, the 24th of February in 1966. That should be, it says 64 there. It should be 1966. 2 years almost to the day subsequent to that letter being sent. Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah was toppled by CIA MI6, sponsored by a CIA MI6 sponsored coup, involving ex-colonial senior army and police officers trained at Sandhurst and Hendon, respectively, calling themselves the National Liberation Council. What an utter disgrace. And there are their names that shall be condemned, brothers and sisters, forever. Almost there. Please bear with me, beloved brothers and sisters. Here we see here rumors abounded via the Euro-American mass media that the coup was triggered by Nkrumah's mismanagement of the economy. Just think about that, beloved brothers and sisters. Corruption, starvation, these lies were being told, and that he had amassed a personal fortune from fleecing the economy. Despite these rumors, however, we see where the U.S. ambassador to Ghana between 1962 and 1965 was on record saying Nkrumah was everything. He's put this on record, brothers and sisters. Politically, economically, even though this particular blighter was part of the conspiracy, he says Nkrumah was everything, politically, economically, psychologically, culturally, and so on. He thus absolutely dominated the scene. Ghana was singular in the sense that it had everything. It had what, brothers and sisters? everything he says. It had educated people. It had considerable infrastructure. It had 3 universities, schools, lawyers, doctors. It had everything going for it. This is what they were discussing behind closed doors, even as they were putting out the vicious propaganda against Nkrumah, justifying those traitors overthrowing him. I have one more slide before I give way, beloved brothers and sisters. And it's another European spilling the beans. This one, however, is a whistleblower by the name of John Stockwell, former CIA agent. He was a station chief in Angola when the CIA was there in Angola, kicking up strife among our people. Yes? However, Howard Baines, he said, who was the CIA station chief in Accra, who engineered the overthrow of Nkrumah. This is a former CIA station chief who is telling the world that the overthrow of Nkrumah was led by a CIA station chief in Ghana. And he tells us further that Howard Baines got a double promotion and the intelligence star for having overthrown Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana. In fact, it's on record that the traitors were paid $13 million or something along those lines. The magic of it, or what made it so exciting for the CIA, is that Howard Baines had enough imagination and drive to run the operation without ever documenting what he was doing and to sweep along his bosses, that should be along his bosses, in such a way they knew what he was doing. Tacitly they approved, but there was not one shred of paper that he generated that would nail the CIA hierarchy as responsible. Beloved brothers and sisters, as I give way, I'm reminding us we haven't even scratched the surface yet. And I'm just repeating the fact that we're going to have to, if Sister Shanice would indulge me, we're going to have to come back to continue, because there's a lot of information further to this, beloved brothers and sisters. But this foundation is extremely important, because when the Osajifo, who was bringing into operation the black print of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Messiah Garvey, when he was overthrown in Ghana, African liberation was set back 100 years. Let me pause there for the moment. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Leader Bandaka, thank you so, so much. I hope I'm not sounding like a Dalek. Someone in the chat, Montu, has been telling me I sound like a Borg, because my apologies. The internet has been absolutely appalling tonight. We've lost our other 2 guests as well.
I was just going to say, where are my brothers?
They're having internet issues as well, man. Having problems trying to connect. So, brother leader, you were able to take that extra time to lay that foundation. Absolutely phenomenal. Oh my gosh. I mean, Osajifo Kwame Nkrumah, what he managed to do during his lifetime, his short lifetime as a leader. Oh my, all those industries that he set up. Wow, wow, wow. We haven't really interacted much with our audience tonight. So I did put a link in the chat. So if you're in the audience and you'd like to jump onto the panel, now's your opportunity to do so. Be part of the Sister Shanice Show panel. Make a contribution to the discussion. I see we've got Brother Kwame in the house. I mean, he went on to say that Kwame Nkrumah actually put in place 500 industries, so knows of many, many more. And so much conversation has been going on in the chat. Let me just pull out some comments randomly, but I'm sure we've all learned so much from you, Leader Bandaka, and so much from Brother Kwame Gonza and Brother Chongo as well before they
left. Sis, if I said 100 industries, it should have said hundreds of industries.
Hundreds, yeah.
It should have said hundreds of industries. So I embrace that that correction.
And some African governments today are struggling to introduce one. And
Absolutely.
That was back then. Look at what he managed to accomplish back then. And here we are today with all of the advances in technology, the higher level of education that all of the citizens are going through. And yet we have so many Africans on the continent who are unemployed, and so few industries, so few new jobs being created. It's a real, we've gone backwards when you consider where our founding fathers were. So, but let's bring in some of the comments, shall we, from the audience and hear what they have to say. Right, what we've got here. S.A. Smith says, just for wanting better for Africans, he was killed. That is how sick the obsession over superiority and power is. Do you want to comment on that, Brother Leader?
Well, Tendai Mwari, that is the essence of our topic this evening. And that's what I'm hoping to connect our people with, the truth about the as we say, the politrix, the deadly politrix of the African continent, where scrupulous, progressive, populist African leaders have had short lifespans compared to the sellouts that are installed by the foreign global white supremacist forces that install them to do their bidding. And many of them just live forever. And some of them continue to live through the children. I hope to demonstrate that, if not tonight, at some future date, Sister Shanice, because as you know, you've heard this presentation before on at least 2 occasions, and I know you've been urging me to do a book to do a book on it, and that's in the pipeline. I must say, but the first time I remember you being at one of our gatherings where I presented this was in 1914. So 2014. But I just want to say it's a subject that I think is extremely important, and more of what people need to understand and have the information to explain and to appreciate why Africa is in the state that it is in now. And
but Kwame is pushing you down that road a little bit. He's commented and said the current government of Ghana's ancestors were involved in the coup.
Yes, and when the time is right, I'll deal with that, because remember, the topic is martyred prophets, celebrated puppets. And we have a celebrated puppet regime in Ghana presently. Unfortunately, some of us believe otherwise. But the very persons who are involved in the toppling of the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, and I'm not just talking about the police and soldiers who actually carried out the egregious act, but I'm talking about some of the people who were behind the scenes working with the CIA. J.B. Dankwa, for example, the person who founded the UGCC, United Ghana Convention. He and other members of his party were involved in the toppling of the Osagyefo. In fact, he is the grand uncle, I believe, grand uncle of the present president of Ghana. The father of the present president of Ghana was one of the big 6 who were involved in the UGCC that the Osagyefo eventually left because he found that there were a bunch of reactionaries who wanted to work with the British to configure an independence that the British approved of, and to do it slowly so that they didn't upset their colonial masters. And so he left the UGCC and founded the CPP, the Convention People's Party, and that they never forgave him. And so they went after him every step of the way. Everything he tried to achieve for Ghana, they tried to sabotage it. Yeah. And so the NPP, that the party that's in government in Ghana today, is a continuation of the UGCC and what they call the Dankwa Buzia tradition. The present president, his father, became president of Ghana not long after the Osagyefo was overturned. Yeah. And so he is the reincarnation of the, in fact, he has his granduncle's name. His name is Nana Dankwa, Nana Akufo-Addo. That's his name. He's got his granduncle's name. And as I said, his father and another uncle was involved in the conspiracy to overthrow the Osagyefo. And we see the repetition of this in various places across the African continent, where the sons of traitors, assassins, are in power, in government on the African continent today as we speak. That is what we mean by, yes. That is, they live on in their sons.
Own people.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's what we mean by the deadly politrix.
Yeah.
The deadly politrix of Africa.
Yeah.
And there is no way that Africa can rise, no way that Africa can be liberated within this paradigm, because it's not designed to liberate us. It's not designed to redeem Africa and to redeem African people. It's not designed for that purpose. It's designed to perpetuate the betrayal of Africa, the betrayal of African people.
Tendai Mwari. Kwame Osei is very optimistic. He's saying Ghana is reawakening with the Fix of the Country coalition that seeks to dismantle the Corporation of Ghana. We certainly look forward to those works manifesting itself. Ngonwi says, time for Black people globally to fight to have our own period. Screw the UK, the US, etc. Absolutely. You know, when you consider the magnificent, glorious heights, you know, where we were as a people prior to the invasion of the Caucasoids, prior, you know, to them coming into the continent, you know, we had our own governments, our own economic systems, we were trading with each other, our own belief systems, our own everything. We were a great, mighty race and a great people. You know, but we were just too welcoming, too embracing, and too willing to, you know, adapt and incorporate other people's ideals. And you can see that throughout our history as well, where everything that comes in, we just seem to, you know, incorporate it and take it over and run with it to our demise. And so, yeah, we really do need to fight to get back our own mind, our own systems, our own everything. Okay, we might have time for just one or two more comments. My, the time has just flown by. I can see lots of responses to comments from Ace, who's very pro-UK, everything UK. But the majority of the audience recognize the fact that, you know, we are Africans. The only difference between us is where the ship dropped us off. Some of us prefer to be recognized by the little island or the big little nation where the ship dropped us off, but most of us prefer to be recognized, you know, by the route from which we came. Okay, Kimani says, excellent presentation, Brother Leader Mandaka. Rise up, my elder. Absolutely have to agree. We must have you back again. You know, we would be delighted and honored for you to return to continue that presentation, Leader, maybe as a series, you know, over several months. And it's much, much needed education. And as someone said earlier on in the chat, when you come to deliver, we need a pen and paper. Okay, So what's this comment here? I've actually clicked on. It says, I thought Mandaka was a Garveyite. Why is he bigging up Nkrumah so much? Wasn't he a socialist following communist Russia and China? Now, do you have to be a Garveyite and not a Nkrumahist? I mean, you know, can we not celebrate all of our revolutionary leaders? Why do we have to be one or the other? But anyway, let me allow you to respond to that. I don't get that. Leader Bandaka.
Tendai Mwari. You know, I think the Osagyef's work speaks for itself. What he was doing in Ghana and what he was doing for the African continent speaks for itself. And it chimed very well with the vision and the black print of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And he evoked the spirit of Papa Garvey in his inauguration speech. So the world knew that he was inspired by the works of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Now, does that mean that I agree with every single thing he said and did? No, of course not. But it's bigger than opinion. It goes beyond personal opinion. There are many Africans who call themselves socialists. I'm not a socialist. I don't believe in socialism. I think it's a misconception. And I'm quite a debated leading socialist Pan-Africanists in this community, people I highly respect and continue to have good relationships with, but we disagree on this particular issue. However, the work that is being done to empower and uplift our people is unquestionable. And you cannot fault the work in that sense that the Osagyefo did. And that's what I judge him on, and that's what I value him for. I love the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah because I know he loved me. He loved me. I know he loved me because of what he tried to do for African people. And I'm an African. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari. Wow, wow, wow. We are 2 minutes away from the top of the hour. The time has absolutely flown by. It just leaves me time really to say a big, big thank you to you, Leader Bandaka. We would be honored to have you back again so that you can continue with this topic, because there are so many great revolutionary leaders. And I think, you know, we need to get to know each and every one of them, what they stood for, what they accomplished. There's absolutely no way that their legacy should die with them. They only die when we forget to, you know, call their name and rise them up and celebrate their great works. I also want to thank Brother Kwame Gonza in his absence. I want to thank Brother Chongo in his absence. I want to thank everybody in the chat as well for your contributions. And, you know, we're going to be Black Next Strong, all being well, with another great panel lineup. I will give you the last word, definitely, Brother Leader. And just want to let you know that on the panel Next Strong, we have got a parliamentary candidate for Grenada who's going to be running against the current Grenadian regime that has been in power for well over 20 years. He is a new hope for making waves in Grenada, and we're going to be honored to have him join our panel Next Strong. So do be with us. That's going to be the last show for this year, and then we're going to have a little bit of a timeout just to give some thought to, you know, how we reshape ourselves. I mean, tell me in the chat, you know, we want to spice up these shows a little bit more. What do you think, you know, I should be bringing to the platform live and direct? You know, maybe what particular themes, what particular topics, or is there a particular format that you think might work better? Let me know what your thoughts are. Okay, Leader Bandaka, let's go back to you, my brother.
Tendai Mwari, I just wanted to say in relation to my brother Kwame's last contribution that at the level of the people, at the level of peopledom, I have faith in the people of Ghana. I have faith in my brothers and sisters on the African continent, those who are seriously committed to the liberation of our people. What I do not have faith in is a kind of political system that was clearly designed by the enslavers and colonizers, the architects of the Ma'afa, the colossal destruction of African humanity cannot and will not and did not intend to design a system, a political system, that would truly empower African people to liberate themselves. Whoever controls Africa rules the world. If Africans control Africa, Africans will rule the world. And I am quite clear that neither Europe, China, India, or any other force of power on the planet today intends for Africans to control Africa. They all want to rule the world, and they all know in order to do that, they must control Africa. And so they put puppet regimes on the African continent to protect their interests. Tendai
is so true. Okay, I've just put my email address in the chat. I welcome your suggestions. I welcome your idea. You know, how can we, bring a bit more flavor to these live shows? Share your thoughts with me. Enough big up for Leader Bandaka in the chat as well. Leader, your works is phenomenal. Someone has said in the chat that Kwame Nkrumah was a failure. I don't think they listened to, I think they need to listen back to the presentation, because if they are accomplishing more today than Kwame Nkrumah did during his time back then they need to come on this platform and share with us what they're actually doing and how much more.
Shanice, the Osagyefo needs no defending. His legacy speaks for itself. Absolutely. They said the same thing about Papa Garvey. There are people who say Garvey failed, right? Garvey failed, Nkrumah failed, but the legacy is there. And as you say, and this is the question I always ask them: you have anything better? Have you done anything? Yeah. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Unite, organize now or perish. Rise, you mighty African people, for you can accomplish whatever you will. And the work of the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah was enabling Africa and Africans to rise. That's what he was doing. And after he was toppled, Africa went right back. You look at the trajectory. When the Osagyefo was here with us and the work that he was doing, where Africa was going, right? And look at what happened to Africa after he was toppled. That's your answer. It really hurts me to the core, because these people suffer this. They made the ultimate sacrifice for us, right? And we must not disrespect them. We must not disrespect them.
And we have a system that promotes the traitors and that rewards the traitors.
That is the point.
And we as a people sadly just seem either powerless to do anything about it or are totally oblivious, to the reality.
And that kind of rhetoric plays into that chicanery as well. It plays into the conspiracy. Think about it. I know we need to close, sis, but think about it, brothers and sisters, for a moment, right? Nkrumah failed. That's what the saboteurs were putting out in their media after they conspired to overthrow him. And then behind closed doors, they were talking about how great he was. That's what I tried to demonstrate to you all this evening. And somebody come with Nkrumah failed. Where did you get that from? Where are the facts? What do you have? What information do you have to substantiate the notion that Nkrumah failed? He didn't topple himself. The man survived 5 or 7, I can't remember how much it was, assassination attempts. Even as he was trying to build a nation, he had to be dodging bullets and bombs. They tried to bomb him bomb him to smithereens. Just think about that for a moment. Even as he's trying to raise up the continent, every day he had to think this could be my last day on the planet. And you come with this nonsense about Nkrumah failed.
How can someone who set up hundreds of industries be classified as a failure? It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We celebrate people, you know, like Dangote, who has, you know, just a few successful industries. You know, it makes no sense whatsoever. I think some of our people are just totally blinded, you know, to the success of people who look like them, you know, because we've been so indoctrinated not to see anything good, you know, in anyone who looks like us. I think that could be the problem. But, you know, from what we've heard today so far from your presentation, Leader Bandaka, you know, Kwame Nkrumah, we need 55 Kwame Nkrumahs today. Can you imagine if we had 55 Kwame Nkrumahs today?
If we had 10, let alone 55, if we had 10 across the African continent today.
Yes, yes. You know, but somehow we're going to have to protect great men and women like them, because, you know, we've only recently just lost the former president of Tanzania, you know, President Magufuli, as he was, you know, bringing his Magufulification to the continent, leading by example of what can be accomplished, you know, when we do things the African way.
No, sis, he failed as well. He failed as well. He toppled him. He killed himself. Sorry, sis. Sorry.
You know, so you know, sadly, some of our people have been so brainwashed and so indoctrinated. It's as if, you know, we can't even see, you know, the greatness in people who looks like us. Good to see young Shakara in the house. Young Shakara speaks. Ghana has less industries today than it did under Nkrumah. Facts. Thanks for that. Rise up, family. We have gone a little over, but you know, we could have continued another 2 hours, I'm sure, with you, Leader Bandaka. So, you know, we would be delighted to have you back again. Family in the chat, I'm sure you would all be delighted to continue this series of educational programs with Leader Bandaka, because, you know, this is information we all need to know and learn from as well. And then obviously later on be devising strategies on how to deal with some of these treacherous ones among us. But for now, family, we're going to have to love you and leave you. Please do like the show. It's not too much to ask, is it? Please do share as well. And we will be back, all being well, next strong. Stay strong, stay powerful. Sister Shanice out of here for now. Thank you again, Leader Bandaka. Thank you, everyone in the audience. One love, family.
Good night, Mari.
Good night, Mari.